Hi everybody! Welcome to my video on painting with watercolors. This is just a short video to get you started. So what do I mean when I say watercolors? It's basically just a paint that's activated by using water. There are a lot of different types of watercolor paints, such as cake form, which is probably what you're used to. You can get watercolors in tubes. You can buy watercolor markers. And they even make watercolor pencils. The similarities between all of these is whatever you're using, you need water to make it work. So let's talk about what kind of materials you will need. Here I am at my workspace, so you're going to need a table of some sort to work on. The first thing that you're going to need is watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is different from regular paper in that it's not going to get wavy or limp when you add water to it. That's really important. Then of course you're going to need your paint. I have some over here. I have watercolor markers, I have watercolor paint in tubes, and I have cake paint too. Then you're going to need 2 cups of water. One is to rinse out your brushes, and one is to use clean water on your painting. Because if you're using watercolor to paint, you don't want to use dirty water. It will change your colors. And of course you're going to need brushes. So I have here some big brushes, some medium brushes, and some little brushes for details. And that's all really important when you're doing watercolor. Okay, I'm going to start out by showing you different techniques. The first technique I want to show you is the wet in wet technique. So here I am getting my paper wet first. That's why it's called wet and wet. You have wet paper and wet paint. I'm just adding color to it, and do you see how it sort of like bleeds and flows? This is a little bit harder to control, but it has a really cool effect. So you can make shapes like a heart, and then add color, and then you have something like this. You just have to be careful not to touch it because it'll be a little bit wet. And then this is also how you make landscapes or fill in a lot of space. You have a wet canvas or wet paper, you add wet paint to it, and then you can sort of float around. I just started with blue and then I decided to add some green here, so you can experiment with lots of different colors and lots of different fades. The next technique I'm going to show you is wet on dry, so using wet paint on dry paper. So this is wet paint on dry paper. You can see I already have a little bit more control than I did before. I'm just writing you guys a message here. And then I'm going to combine a couple different colors, and I'll show you what it's like when you add water. You can put colors right next to each other, and then when you add water, it bleeds together. Like so. Check that out. There you go. You can even get really detailed by doing something like doing a sketch ahead of time. So here's a rose. And I am going in and creating the lines with a darker color, and then I'm going to use pink to sort of create a different color there, and then I'm going to blend it together with my water. Watch me go. So by using the water, it's blending the colors together, they're bleeding, they're kind of merging, and it's a really cool way to create an effect. Now, if you like watercolor, just know that it's not going to be as sharp as maybe some other paints. But here I am trying lettering again. So basic lettering is you write just like normal, and then you can go ahead and add different places that you want to make thicker or thinner, or add embellishments, or add twirlies, or I'm adding colors here too to make a sort of fun spring font. I'm making it cursive, even though it wasn't, just showing you some techniques. And then I'm going to go ahead with my brush and blend it in. So look how cool it looks. The green and the blue are merging together. You can also use wet on wet technique and a wet on dry technique. So here I go, I'm adding water all over this page that I've already started something else, and then I'm adding some green paint to create an effect around what I've already done. So you can combine your techniques too. There's so many things that you can do with watercolor, but this is just a start. One thing I really like to do with watercolors is like flower borders. So I've got this one, something like this where you combine letters and flowers. You can combine lettering and wet technique to do something like this. You can do fun things with quotes like this. You can make a cool background. Really, the possibilities are endless. So now that you know the basics, try and have fun with it. So there's just a introductory video. I will talk more in the presentation, but I want to see what you come up with. Thanks, guys.